All right, so are you ready to dive into some seriously strange stuff today?
Always up for a good mystery. Yeah.
Well, today we're talking Ooparts.
Ooparts.
Yeah, out-of-place artifacts. They're these objects that just don't seem to fit into our understanding of history. Like imagine finding a smartphone in a Viking tomb.
That'd be pretty wild.
Exactly. And that's what makes Ooparts so fascinating. They challenge what we think we know about the past.
Right. Like they're throwing a wrench into the timeline. Like, wait a minute. How did they have that back then?
Yeah. And you know me, I love a good mystery. So for today's deep dive, we're going to channel our inner Indiana Jones and explore some of these seriously puzzling artifacts.
Sounds fun. Where do we start?
Well, we're going to kick things off with a collection of artifacts that have been causing quite a stir. The Lamana artifacts.
Laman artifacts. I'm not familiar with those.
Yeah, they were discovered back in 1984 in Ecuador. It's a collection of over 300 objects, and let me tell you, looking at the pictures now, they are stunning. Intricate carvings, symbols, and even what appears to be a world map. It's like stumbling upon a lost civilization's toolbox.
Wow. So where were these things found exactly?
Well, they were unearthed about 100 meters underground in a region of Ecuador called Lamana.
Lamana. That name sounds familiar.
And here's where it gets even more interesting. The name Lamana itself might be connected to ancient Sanskrit. It could mean mind or mental body.
Sanskrit in Ecuador. That's a pretty big stretch geographically.
Right. It's like finding a kangaroo in a penguin colony.
So what else makes these artifacts so unique, besides the location, I mean?
Well, dating them is difficult because of prolonged exposure to the elements, sunlight and all that.
Right, makes sense.
But the craftsmanship, the materials used, they suggest a pre-Columbian origin.
So before Columbus arrived in the Americas, we're talking potentially predating the Inca, the Maya, all those civilizations.
Possibly even older. And get this, Lamana, where these artifacts were found. It's situated exactly 30% of the Earth's circumference away from the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Wait, are you suggesting some kind of ancient connection between Ecuador and Egypt?
Well, it's definitely a curious coincidence. It might suggest an understanding of geospatial relationships that's pretty advanced for its time. And let's not forget about that Sanskrit connection. It's all very intriguing.
Okay, you've got my attention. So we've got a potential link to Sanskrit, a geographically significant location, and artifacts that might be older than we think. But what about the artifacts themselves? What makes them so special?
Let's start with the most talked about one, the world map stone.
Okay, a world map. That's pretty ambitious for a supposedly ancient civilization.
Right, but this isn't just any world map. It depicts the continents, but not as we see them today. It includes land masses that are now submerged, like Sundaland in Southeast Asia, and maybe even a small continent in the Atlantic.
Lost continents, that's a whole other rabbit hole.
Totally. But some researchers believe it could be a map from a time when the sea levels were significantly lower, like maybe during the last ice age, over 12,000 years ago.
Wow, a map from the Ice Age. That's incredible. Imagine the kind of knowledge and technology they would have needed to create something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there are even more baffling aspects to these artifacts. Some of them exhibit what's called zero-point magnetic effects.
Zero-point magnetic effects, I'm not sure I follow.
Okay, imagine a spinning top that never stops.
Perpetual motion.
Exactly. It's like they figured out how to tap into this point of perfect balance within a magnetic field, allowing for continuous motion. It's mind-boggling.
So they were manipulating magnetic fields thousands of years ago. I mean, we're just beginning to understand those concepts now.
Right. What else did they know that we're only now rediscovering?
Well, and there's more. There's also the thing with the UV fluorescence.
Oh, yeah, the glowing rocks.
Well, sort of. When you shine UV light on some of the calcite inlays in the carvings, they glow in different colors.
Like some kind of ancient rave.
Well, not exactly a rave, but it does show that they weren't just randomly choosing rocks. They were selecting specific minerals, maybe even incorporating magnesium to achieve a specific effect.
Okay, so we've got magnetic manipulation, fluorescent rocks. What else is there? What about the symbols and inscriptions on the artifacts? Any idea what they mean?
Some of them resemble ancient Sanskrit, which again is intriguing given that possible connection to the name Lamana.
Okay, so maybe there's something to that Sanskrit connection after all.
Maybe. And there are also symbols that look remarkably similar to the Great Pyramid and the Eye of Providence.
Wait a minute. Are we venturing into conspiracy theory territory here? Are you saying there's a connection between these ancient Ecuadorian artifacts And like the founding fathers?
Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but it is a curious parallel, wouldn't you say?
Hmm.
And then there are the 13 jadeite cups.
13 cups. What's so special about them?
Well, they're engraved with numerals that correspond to the zodiac and precession cycles. It suggests an advanced understanding of astronomy, perhaps even an awareness of cyclical patterns spanning thousands of years.
Okay, my head is officially spinning. Let's take a break from Lamana for a second before I get lost in a vortex of ancient mysteries and secret societies. What's the next O part on our list?
Next up, we're heading to Russia for a truly baffling artifact, the Vladivostok cogwheel.
Vladivostok cogwheel, right? I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
All right, so picture this. You're a coal miner in Russia hacking away at this seam of coal that's estimated to be 300 million years old, and you come across something metallic embedded in the rock.
300 million years? We're talking older than the dinosaurs here, right? What did they find? A fossilized robot or something?
Not quite, but it's almost as weird. It's a cogwheel, a small one, about 7 centimeters long, remarkably well preserved with 6 teeth.
Wait, a cogwheel? Like from a machine?
Yeah, it looks like a modern cogwheel, like something you'd find in a piece of machinery today.
But in coal, that's 300 million years old. Okay, this is where things start to get really interesting. So what's the explanation? Did some time-traveling mechanic leave behind a spare part?
If only it were that simple. Analysis of the cogwheel showed it's made up of 98% aluminum and 2% magnesium, an alloy you don't really find naturally.
So it's definitely manufactured. But by who? Or what? 300 million years ago, there weren't any humans around to build machines, right?
Right. That's what makes this artifact so baffling. It's like finding a computer chip embedded in a trilobite fossil. It just doesn't fit with our current understanding of history.
Okay, so let's entertain some possibilities here. What are the theories about how this cogwheel ended up in a lump of coal from the Carboniferous period?
Well, some researchers believe it could be evidence of a technologically advanced civilization that existed way before humans. Maybe a civilization that had knowledge and technology that we haven't even dreamed of.
A lost civilization with advanced engineering skills? That's a pretty wild theory. What else is there?
Well, there's another theory, and this one is out there.
Hit me with it.
Some scientists have suggested that maybe, just maybe, the cogwheel could be of extraterrestrial origin.
Extraterrestrial. Like aliens. Are we saying aliens visited Earth millions of years ago and left behind a spare part from their spaceship?
It's a possibility, right? Some have pointed out that the alloy in the cogwheel has a similar composition to what you'd find in meteorites, with aluminum-26 that decays into magnesium-26 over time. So maybe it's not so crazy to think it came from space.
Okay, hold on. So we've got a cogwheel that's millions of years old.
Yep.
Potentially made by a lost civilization or even aliens. This is like something straight out of the X-Files.
It's definitely a head-scratcher, and it's a mystery that remains unsolved. But let's not get too lost in the world of ancient aliens and prehistoric civilizations.
All right, fair enough. What's our next O part? Back to Earth, or are we still out in space?
Back to Earth, but we're still dealing with something pretty incredible. The Marden toy car.
A toy car. Okay, I'm picturing a tiny little matchbox car buried in some ancient ruins. What's so special about a toy car?
Well, this toy car is made of stone. And it dates back about 7,500 years to the late Stone Age.
7,500 years. Okay, so this is a pretty old toy car. Did they have Hot Wheels back then?
Not quite, and that's where the mystery comes in. This toy car actually resembles a miniature tractor with 2 axles and 4 wheels.
So a wheeled toy from the Stone Age. What's the problem with that? Didn't they have the wheel back then?
Well, that's the thing. The invention of the wheel is generally attributed to Mesopotamia around 3500 BC. That's about 4,000 years after this toy car was made.
Wait, so you're telling me they had wheeled toys thousands of years before the wheel was supposedly invented? That's like finding a blueprint for a combustion engine in a cave painting. How is that even possible?
Exactly. Creating functional wheels usually requires pretty precise holes for axles, and that typically means you need metal tools. But metal tools weren't really a thing during the late Stone Age, so how did they make this wheeled toy?
It's not like they could just hop on Amazon and order a wheel-making kit.
Right, so the Marden toy car really throws a wrench into the accepted timeline of technological development. Some researchers think it might have been a ceremonial object or something, but it really does look like a model for a larger vehicle.
So maybe they did have wheels way earlier than we thought. But if they did, where's the evidence? What happened to all the other wheeled vehicles from that time? Did they just vanish into thin air?
That's the mystery, isn't it? The Marden toy car really challenges our understanding of the past. It's like a little whisper from history saying, hey, there's a lot more to the story than you think.
So we've gone from a world map from the Ice Age to a cogwheel from the time of the dinosaurs, and now a toy car that predates the invention of the wheel. It's like our entire understanding of history is being turned upside down.
That's the beauty of Oparts, isn't it? They force us to question everything we thought we knew.
So we've traveled from Ecuador to Russia and Turkey, all on the trail of these mysterious Oparts.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, and every one of these artifacts has really made us rethink what we thought we knew about history.
It's like someone hit the reset button on our understanding of the past.
Right. Like we've only been looking at a tiny piece of the puzzle, and Oparts are these like giant puzzle pieces that suddenly appear and make us question everything.
Exactly. So how do we even begin to make sense of these Oparts? What could they tell us about humanity's past or even our future?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, if we take these Oparts at face value, they suggest that our understanding of history is incomplete. Like there are huge chunks missing from the story.
It's like reading a history book with half the pages ripped out. We're missing key chapters, maybe even entire volumes.
Yeah, exactly. Like with the Lamana artifacts, if they really are evidence of a pre-Columbian civilization with advanced knowledge of astronomy and all that stuff, it really makes you rethink the traditional narrative.
It's like realizing that everything we learned in school about the ancient world was just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, like what if there were sophisticated civilizations rising and falling long before the ones we're familiar with? I mean, that would completely rewrite history.
It's mind-blowing. And what about the Vladivostok cogwheel? I mean, if that thing really is millions of years old, that's a whole other level of crazy.
Right. I mean, are we talking about a lost civilization so advanced they were building machines millions of years ago? Or are we talking about something even more out there like alien technology?
It's both exciting and terrifying to think about it.
I know. It's exciting because it opens up all these possibilities, but it's also kind of scary because it means we might not be as special as we thought we were.
Exactly. And that's the thing with Oparts. They force us to question our assumptions, to consider alternative theories, even if they seem far-fetched.
Right. Like they're these little reminders that we don't have all the answers, that there's still so much to learn about the past, and that maybe, just maybe, some of our wildest theories about ancient civilizations and alien visitors might not be so crazy after all.
So what should our listeners take away from this deep dive into the world of Oparts?
Well, I think the most important thing is to stay curious.
Curious
About everything. About history, about science, about the unknown. Don't just accept the official narrative, you know? Question things, do your own research, and keep an open mind.
Don't be afraid to go down the rabbit hole.
Exactly. That's where the real fun begins. You know, Oparts are like little clues scattered throughout history, and it's up to us to try to piece them together. Who knows, maybe one of our listeners will be the one to make the next big discovery that changes everything.
So that would be an episode of the Deep Dives I wouldn't want to miss. So to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep an eye out for those out-of-place artifacts. You never know what you might find. And if you have any thoughts or theories or your own favorite Opart examples, be sure to share them with us in the comments. We love hearing from you.
And if you're hungry for more mysteries and strange phenomena, be sure to check out the OddSpot YouTube channel. And they've got tons of amazing videos exploring all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff.
And of course, make sure you're subscribed to the Deep Dive for more deep dives on all sorts of fascinating topics. We're always looking for new mysteries to unravel, so if there's something you're curious about, let us know. Until next time, keep those minds open. And remember, the truth is out there somewhere.